There was a beautiful young woman named Diane that sang in the choir and did a lot of solos because she was a wonderful singer. I got to know her personally because she also taught a couple Sunday school classes that I was in. Welcome back to They Did What? Your source for the internet's craziest, most entertaining stories, where I go with them, analyze them, and most certainly make fun of them. Today, I'm going to go over a story that was actually sent to me for the other channel, but it was so good, it was so out there that honestly, it's more warranted to cover over here. This story is from the perspective of the subscriber who shares the crazy story that his brother-in-law told him about his ex-wife. You're going to see here that in this guy's marriage, he was married to a gal for 12 years who was considered to be quite righteous, if you will. She was a Sunday school teacher. She sung in the choir, so obviously revered in the community, all that. But as it turns out, she had a different side to her that he wasn't aware of. A side to her that, well, everybody else in town knew about except him. And you're going to see that, you heard the term the village bicycle. She was actually the village, W-H-O-R-E, house. And the way this guy found out about it, good Lord. And this story goes to show you that, guys, unfortunately, I tell you all the time about looking out for red flags. Be aware of red flags, all that. Nowadays, you have to specifically search for them. And by the way, this whole thing went down, 35, 40 years ago. So it's not like Sodom and Gomorrah 2.0 just started now. The actions of that have been going on for a long time, just in varying degrees. But anyhow, guys, that'll be a very entertaining one to go over here. And again, you'll see what I'm talking about. So it starts off, he says, Hi SSM. I've been listening for a while now and I love your channels. I have a 20-year-old son that just discovered for himself what I've been saying all about girls these days. It's taken him several months of heartache to finally come to terms with the fact that his awesome, wonderful, perfect girlfriend was common street trash. Of course, I told him that the first time around that I met her, but he knew better. Of course, he knew better. I mean, let's be honest, we were all young once and teenagers, and we all, of course, thought our parents were a big bunch of idiots, or our elders, because they, God forbid, just didn't know anything, even though we, with all our wonderful life experience, knew everything. I'm sorry your son went through a lot of BS with his ex, but if he learned at a young age, that will help him in the long term. So, anyway, I want to write a quick letter about an event that started back in the early 80s when I was in high school. This story will show you that the world really is a small place, and that you never know the truth about women until it's too late. Sadly, that is the situation. I grew up going to church and attended a fairly large one with 700 to 800 attendees on any given Sunday. There was a beautiful young woman named Diane that sang in the choir and did a lot of solos because she was a wonderful singer. Well, she was obviously doing a whole lot of other things with her wonderful mouth. I got to know her personally because she also taught a couple of Sunday school classes that I was in. All the guys had crushes on her, but we were 12 to 15 years old, and she was 23 and married. So all we could do was dream, in a church-approved manner, of course. Yeah, I'm sure you thought of her in a church-approved manner, my friend. A few years on, maybe a year after I graduated high school in 1983, Diane just disappeared. Rumors went crazy, but no one really knew what happened to her. She was just gone, and boy, was she missed. In 1990, my sister, the troll, married a pretty cool guy named Kevin. He and I got along very well and probably would have become bros, except for the fact that he was a total alcoholic and I didn't really drink at all. One afternoon, I was helping him re-shingle his detached garage, and we got into talking about girls, instigated by the fact that I was going through a breakup myself right then and there. Well, a bonding experience. I'd known that he was divorced, but that's all I knew. Imagine my surprise to find out that his first wife was none other than, wait for it guys, my church's beloved Diane. Here's the small world part. After I heard his story, I began my lifelong education on the evil we know collectively as the gals. And guys, you're about to hear about a whole other side of Diane that, no one ever would have believed in his church. My brother-in-law had been working at a factory since he was 18 years old. He voluntarily worked third shift because it paid a couple bucks an hour more than first and second shift. Management came to him one day to ask if he could work second shift for 2 weeks because of recent firings of lousy employees. He agreed, and Kevin didn't really know anyone on the second shift, and they didn't know him either. He made friends with the 25 guys on that shift, and when payday came, one of the guys asked Kevin if he was going to Diane's house with them after work. He'd be like, "What? Diane's house?" He asked questions and discovered that there was a beautiful woman named Diane that had some connection to the company, and that once a month, the entire second shift went to her house where she had beer and pizza out, and she did the guys one or two at a time for 8 hours. So let's remember, this guy worked third shift, so he's there. I think third shift is like 11 p.m. to 7 o'clock in the morning, something like that. So when the second shift ended, when this guy would come to the factory, off they go to see Diane. The agreement was that they would each leave some cash to cover expenses and take all the trash with them when they left. Kevin was intrigued, but not really interested since he had a lovely wife at home and didn't want to screw that up, but he asked the guy for her address, saying he might stop by for a little while. You guessed it. It was his address and his Diane. After getting that news, he asked how long she'd been doing this. The answer was 12 years, or about 1 year after Kevin had started third shift. Nobody knew how or why it started. Holy freaking shit. Now, a lot of you guys are like, bullshit. Bullshit SSM. Creative writing. This guy's trolling you. You never know. But there are so much crazy crap in the world. You can't rule out anything being possible these days. You cannot. And that's why I'm covering this. But imagine that, finding out that all the years of your marriage, this has been going on while you're doing the third shift. And I might add, doing the third shift, which is not the most agreeable hours, 11 o'clock at night to 7 o'clock in the morning, to bring some extra money in, to provide, and you find out that this is your wife, hooking up with dudes the entire time, and all these dudes at the factory, not your coworkers in the shift that you work, but the other one. Yeah, that might do something to you. Kevin waited in the factory parking lot for a long time before driving home and finding his neighborhood lined with cars of the guys he'd been working with. And he could see them all through the windows of his house, milling around and eating pizza. Here's a question I have. How is it that this has been going on so long? And he didn't know. How has this been going on so long that none of the neighbors said anything? That's one of my biggest issues there, right? That some neighbor across the street mentioned, man, that party you had the other night, or how come I wasn't invited there, or something. That's the part that I will, but okay. His only thought was that Diane had to, go to the afterlife, if you will. Like right now. So Kevin drove to his parents' house, snuck in and got his dad's weapon. He also took the bottle of his dad's whiskey and began drinking it as he drove back across town towards his neighborhood. At this point in his life, Kevin was not a big drinker, just a couple beers after work sometimes. So the bottle of whiskey would take him to La La Land real quick. Well, he woke up in the hospital pretty cut up from the windshield and faced charges of drunk driving and illegal possession of a firearm. Ultimately, all charges were dropped due to the circumstances and his clean record up to that point. So he was so trashed, they crashed the car. And while that happened, he got cut up and bruised up, and obviously he got away with this because of his clean record and circumstances and all that. But what if that didn't happen? What if he went back to the house and drunk with that weapon? Regardless of being drunk or not, he's life in prison or to the electric chair. His dad went to Kevin's house to explain how it was to Diane. She packed what she wanted and was gone that day. To the best of my knowledge, nobody has ever heard from her since she left town. A lawyer represented her in a slam dunk, no contest divorce. No kids were involved. That is the circumstance that caused Kevin to start drinking heavily, and as far as I know, he's never even tried to beat the alcohol addiction. I know it didn't help that he was married to my trailer trash sister for a while. Okay. So Honest to God, I can't escape the sirens ever. Thank you. Anyhow, so there you go. Now you can see why this guy never shook the drinking. Do you think that you'd stop drinking if you found out about this, about your wife of all those years? Probably not. But then he went on, and then would you get married a second time? I sure as hell wouldn't. But, anyhow. He says, anyway, like I said in the beginning, nobody would have considered it possible this beautiful young Christian lady would allow 25 factory workers to pull a train on her every month for a decade and be able to hide it so completely. The part I don't get, and that gets me, is that the neighbors would have said something. Unless, I don't know, he lived off in the country, I don't know. I know there will be a ton of questions, you bet your ass, but I don't have any answers. I heard every word of this straight from the mouth of Kevin himself, and I know it's true. Keep up the good work, SSM. You and your contributors are changing lives for the better. Brad. Well, Brad, that's quite a story, and I believe you. I believe you mean this to be true, but you got to understand how freaking crazy it is that a lot of guys are going to be like, bullshit. But anyhow, for argument's sake, let's just say it's true. This goes to show you guys that, again, the sweet, innocent, church-going, Sunday school, singing the choir teacher, there you go. And it's been my experience that some of the people that are hidden in the cloak of the religion definitely have a completely different side. I've known a few girls in my life that were so smothered in the religion in JC, they definitely went down the dark path. One gal I knew got really heavily into drugs, the injectable kind, very pretty girl. Another kid I knew, he also got into the same thing, and he ended up dying because of his family. That's a dude, but point is, other gals definitely, they had the whole facade of sweet and innocent, but good Lord, Satan was with them. I'm going to put it to you that way. Anyhow, you got to pay attention, guys. Not just pay attention, but also look for red flags, because you just never know. And this poor bastard, but holy crap. All right, guys, that's it for today. Be sure to comment down below. Let me just think about this. And, guys, you come across a good story like to share, it's freaking crazy or nuts or whatever, whether it's something you found online or a personal story you have from your life or somebody you know, definitely send it my way. strongsuccessfulmale@gmail.com. And this is it could be either short stories, which I could use in the Clips channel, or preferably longer stories that I can use over here in the They Do What channel. And, of course, if you happen to have a good story from your own personal life that you want to send my way, I can cover that in the Strong Successful Male channel. Just let me know, and I'll get to it when I can. And also, guys, just if you haven't already, definitely subscribe to all my channels. The more people subscribe to the channels, YouTube will say, hey, this channel's a winner, and we'll keep spreading it, and we keep pissing off the feminists as the channel grows. And be sure to like the video, share it with your friends, and subscribe. And I'll catch you next time.